Alright, it is a Thursday, 9:27 a.m., November the 18th, and this might be something I'll regret, but I feel like I'm doing much better with morning panic bounce play setups, but I just feel like I'm not really pushing myself as hard as I should be to be, as profitable as I can with them, since I feel like I'm starting to get the entries. I've always had good entries, but my exits were not really that good. Now that I've been starting to sell them in pieces, which I think is helping a lot, and of course, I've been very grateful that the setups still work and they still offer opportunities. At least at this time, I think I'm going to consider, which is normally my $8 risk level on all setups. I think I'm going to do something different. I think I'm going to try a $15 risk level on morning panic bounce play setups, and then for anything afterwards, like for example the higher low setup or the lower low, maybe an inverse head and shoulders on a OTC setup, I'll go back to the $8 risk level, and then that would help if I'm profitable on a morning panic bounce play, and then maybe I hesitate on the setup, like kind of like ELEK that I was just watching it yesterday, because I didn't want to lose my profits from my morning panic bounce play trade. But in theory, if I have a higher dollar risk level on the morning panic bounce plays, and then on the other setups it's back to the $8, then that might help me be able to perhaps trade any setups that actually looks like it can do something. And I might consider looking at listed stocks too, but I think I'll actually trade smaller on those, maybe a $4 risk level. But that might not be feasible because they like trading these like big random red candles sometimes, and it kind of comes back, and that kind of throws it kind of throws me off, because I like being pretty exact with my setups. As for what we have, I'm just gonna watch ELEK. ILUS could be a morning panic bounce play. I don't want to trade this for anything else other than that. I don't like the way it looks. If it does something nice, then I'll reconsider, but otherwise that's the case there. DGGI, morning panic bounce play, RGBP, but only if it looks clean, because I don't like where it is on a daily chart. AABB could be one. If it tries to reverse nicer, I might trade it. DPLS, it could be a morning panic bounce play. This one's a bit freaky. OZSC, I'll probably just watch. I don't like this one very much. Yeah, that's what I have for right now. I'm gonna consider a $15 risk level on morning panic bounce plays, and on the rest I'll do $8. Alright, it is 9:53 a.m. and I did trade ILUS with a $15 risk, and I was actually kind of close to buying this one. This one was like a morning panic bounce play right here, and then here's a lower low setup. So it just kept downtrending. I didn't like how I'd have a wick and come back, and then a wick and come back. So then what if I put my stop somewhere, my mental stop, and then it does a wick there and it just slightly comes back. I just I would have had to have judged the price action pretty closely, but in theory I could have been in theory at like this 40-cent level, and it did make a move to 41, but the price action is just kind of iffy looking, because it's pretty much it was at VWAP from there, right, with the entry at 40, and the idea was that if it breaks the wick here, I cut losses. So let's just say I'm in at 40, 500 shares, $200 position. If it breaks this level, this wick right here, and then let's say worst case or some serious slippage, I get out at 38. So from 40 to 38, you see that's about $10. So that's pretty close to my $8 risk level. Again, I only want to do a $15 risk level on morning panic bounce plays, and this is a lower low setup, so this is a bit different. And right now I'd be slightly profitable if I were to sell at the bid, which doesn't seem to be the same as E-Trade at least. I'd be up just $2 right now, just seeing how this thing can go from here if it can try to reverse. It did break this level, so it's not really too nice because it might choke. But I did trade this, and notice how I have just 500 shares, because I would be getting in at 40, not really the ideal price, maybe 39.58, so maybe 39.6 would have been nicer, and then I would be closer. Then maybe in theory I could be able to trade more shares accordingly to the $8 risk level. This thing can try to do inverse head and shoulders if it's super bullish. Like here's a shoulder, the head, it makes a spike, and then it tries to make a shoulder. That would not be bad at all. But at this point, I'm not in the trade, and I'm just going to learn from the price action and see what it does. But I did trade 2,500 shares on this setup, and I knew it wasn't like the cleanest looking morning panic bounce play, but because I was doing that $15 risk level, in theory I did have like a roughly $1,000 position, and I was in at my average was 414 right here. I did hit the ask, which was, I believe, 416. Yeah, I think it was 416, but I got some shares executed at the bid and some at the ask, I believe, but most of it was pretty much at the bid because my average was 414. This was at the morning panic bounce play. It wasn't really that clean, but it did offer like a level to play off of. So in theory, if this level 41 was going to break and I would be out at 405, I believe that's how I did it. Here's 1,035, 1,012. So if you add 1527, I guess that would be a little too much. Maybe I oversized. I need to look back at my notes and see where exactly was my risk level, because if that was the case, that was too much. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I would be playing it off of 4005. Yeah, if that was the case, maybe I did trade too large. But anyway, my entry was at 938 right here, this candle. This is where I got executed my shares, this little candle right here. And I did sell in pieces. I did sell 2 minutes later because it did kind of break out of this 416 range, and then it started trading 416, as you can tell right here, by 42. And I just thought, alright, I'm probably not going to get a sell at the ask. There's a lot of sellers at the ask. The bid isn't that strong. I'm going to start slowly selling my shares at the bid, but you know, in pieces, in case it does break out of 42 and it makes a move to the upside, which in this case it didn't. Like, this is a morning panic bounce play that I traded that did not get past VWAP. It definitely held under it, and you know, I sold a small piece when we were slightly higher, and then I saw the rest when it really looks like it wasn't going to be able to break past 42. You know, taking a risk, sure that it might do it later, but the price action wasn't really that nice, and I knew the morning panic bounce play wasn't the cleanest either. So I did sell in pieces. Ultimately, they all averaged out to 417. Slightly profitable. I think maybe with 500 shares, I got it at like, I don't know, maybe 418, and then it was just barely a loss on this section, or maybe this is just calculated wrong by Schwab or whatever. I'm up like $8 off of that trade. Again, this one did not really work out. You know, it didn't break past VWAP, which is fine. You know, and I wasn't able to sell at VWAP either because I was at the ask. It would have been, you know, taking a risk trying to sell at the ask. So I was selling here the entire time. You know, maybe we can get a morning panic bounce play and it breaks past VWAP, and I'll be trading that $15 risk level. But yeah, I don't mind it. DPLS, I was watching it here, but I thought it wasn't really down that much for me to consider it. Maybe it can try to reverse from here, but I don't really like this one. I remember trading this when I knew, you know, less about morning panic bounce plays, and I would get screwed just trading this one. So it still trades the same way, just very ugly. We'll see if ILUS does that inverse head and shoulders. I would have liked it if it spiked more, and you know, maybe had a shoulder at the same range, but that might not be the case. Doesn't look that bad of a setup, but you know, I have to remember, like, this is not a good spot here in the daily chart, so I'll just be more cautious. RGBP, nothing. This one held itself, but it never really offered like a morning panic for me to trade. AABB, I guess it did one later, a little ugly looking, but it went from 22 to 23, which is like 4.5%. Not really too ideal. TGGI, just a liquid. OZSE, Yeah, liquid. And also with RGBP, I was interested in this one. It did do a morning panic bounce play, but I think they're just running out of volume. So this one was even harder to get in compared to yesterday's. This was a pretty much level 2 reversal. I could have been in it if I was super aggressive, but I mean, it only went from 21.5 to 22.5, so that's like 4% again, 4.5%. It's just running out of volume, and I don't like where it is on a daily chart. It wasn't clean, but it did offer something. I'll make an update later. I'll keep looking at ILUS just to learn from the price action. Maybe I can try inverse head and shoulders, but again, I would have liked it if this level got higher to this 42 level. That would have been much nicer. Alright, it is 5:15 p.m. and I am here to call it off. I think I am up $8.59 perhaps with ILUS, but actually the problem with ILUS is that I ended up trading a little bit more in terms of what I should normally trade, at least trying the first time with the $15 risk. It just wasn't really ideal in that, sure, the setup didn't really play out, but again, the main issue is that, according to where I was risking it, which was, the bottom with slippage, which was 405, I actually traded too large of a size. I could have easily traded 1,500 shares, I believe. Maybe 15,000. Yeah, definitely 1,500. That would have been so much closer to my $15 risk level. And sure, in this case, it, wasn't a big deal. I didn't, get in a losing trade. Now, it wasn't the best trade, right? But it didn't do anything, spectacular. It didn't continue to uptrend. It didn't even get above VWAP. So this one didn't really work out. But I need to be careful. I need to always try to trade accordingly to my dollar risk level, because if the setup doesn't work, and instead of $15, I'm sitting at a $22 risk level position size, that's not gonna be fun. It's not gonna be fun at all. And it did do this turnaround here, which would have been kind of hard. There was nothing else I was really interested in. AABB was nice, but it happened later, a little later than regularly, so I didn't actually see it until it was already happening, and at that point, it's too late. But I'm going to try to focus on AABB more for morning panic bounce plays, because it seems to be nicer. And RGBP, again, the volume is just kind of drying up. It happened, but it was even harder to get in. It was a level 2 reversal. Nothing with DPLS. It was kind of iffy the whole time. It was sketchy. Nothing with the other ones really. This one was interesting. I was looking at it for a potential inverse head and shoulders. It never really offered an opportunity. I was interested when it had this, in theory, shoulder, head, and then it had a spike, right? And I thought maybe it can get back towards VWAP and then do something nice off of it, but it didn't. It stayed at its highs there, so I didn't have any interest. And my degenerate side wanted to really trade OCSI, even with like a tiny 100 share position, because of how much range there is. I was watching it here. I had an alert go out thinking, okay, maybe I'll just try to break out and then do one of those like crazy end of the day closes where it just spikes up in the air and probably squeezes a bunch of shorts or something. But it didn't. It had this little downtrend. I stopped looking at it. It did push back, but this would have been very hard to trade. So that's all I have. Just one morning panic bounce play set up with a $15 risk. In theory, I need to just get better, practicing, and I'm sure I can, do my dollar risk level sooner and more accurately. It's just something I need to get used to. Obviously, it's double my $8 risk level, so maybe it was a little bit, me just being rusty, but I'm sure that's something I'll just continue to work forward. And yeah, definitely I need to do that, because if a setup doesn't work, I don't want to lose more than my dollar risk level. I think it was a good step in the right direction.